5 years ago, my life was shattered. My name is Jonathan Karras. I live in a small town about 30 miles outside of Boston, Massachusetts. 5 years ago, I was living with my wife, Jenna, and my two sons, Matthew and Tyler. We were happy. We had a nice house, good neighbors, and a tight-knit community we were very active in. The idea that what would unfold in the following days could happen in our little town, it was unthinkable. It was Sunday, September 16th. The weather was nice, so we decided to take a walk to the local park. Tyler and Matthew loved the playground, so Jenna and I figured we would sit on the bench for a bit and let them play while we watched. Matthew stuck by the swings. Tyler crawled into the plastic tunnels on the playground. About an hour in, Jenna got up to make a phone call, so I was left to watch our kids. Matthew was swinging away to his heart's content, but Tyler, he crawled out of the tunnels looking terrified. I went over to him and asked what was wrong, only to see that he was holding something in his hand. I looked and saw that he was holding a razor blade. I asked him where he got something like this, and he said the Skin Man gave it to him. I didn't know what he was talking about, but I could tell he was terrified. As soon as Jenna came over, I told her exactly what he told me. We decided to go home. Something clearly upset our son. We were all ready to leave when we realized Matthew wasn't by the swings. We looked in the tunnels. He wasn't there. Not on the slide or behind the rock wall. Not in the bathroom. We couldn't find him. We looked all over. We had other couples and families looking for him, but we couldn't find him. We called the police, who arrived soon after, but there was no trace of Matthew. He was missing. He couldn't have run very far. He was only 4, and I had my eyes off him for only a minute. We feared the worst. We feared that someone had abducted Matthew, taken him from us in broad daylight, right under our noses. We searched well into the night. The police notified the area of a missing child, but we heard nothing. I told the cops about what Tyler saw, about this Skin Man and the razor blade he had. The cops took the razor blade as evidence and told us to go home and wait by the phone for any news. Jen and I were unable to sleep that night. We were up for hours crying. I was feeling sick. We were so worried about our baby boy. We didn't know what to do. 2 days went by. 2 days of agonizing fear and sickness at the thought of our little Matthew scared and alone. Then we got the call. They had found Matthew in a storm drain 12 miles from the playground. I don't have the heart to tell you how the coroner says he died. The heartbreaking sobs of my wife after finding out what happened to our son will be ingrained in my soul forever. We could hardly identify him when we saw him. We couldn't even hold an open casket for our baby boy. He was gone. He was taken from us by him. I know it was him. This Skin Man took our Matthew from us. The news spread all over the state of Massachusetts. Parents wouldn't let their children out of their sights. 5 months passed. The pain didn't stop. Jenna fell into a depression that I was sure she would never emerge from. I tried to bury my pain in my work, but deep down I was dead inside. My son was gone. Tyler wasn't unscathed either. He kept having terrible nightmares. Eventually, we took him to a child psychologist. They deduced that whatever Tyler saw on that day was causing him these nightmares. They gave him a paper and pencils and asked him to draw what he saw. The Skin Man. What Tyler drew sent a cold chill down my spine. It was crude, but I could make out details. It looked like an old man with strands of long, mousy hair sunken-in eyes and a pointed chin. He was wearing a coat that looked like it was made of skin, human skin. The worst part was his smile. An unnaturally wide smile, with teeth like sharp, rotten nails. We showed the drawing to the police, but it didn't help much. No one who was interviewed had seen such a man in the area that day. And Jenna and I certainly would have noticed if someone like that had approached the playground. Psychologists suggested that Tyler's nightmares might have been affecting his memory of the event, but it didn't matter. It wouldn't bring our son back to us. Days turned to months. We tried to move on. We tried to stay strong for Tyler, but knowing that whatever took Matthew that day was still out there, it was infuriating. Jenna wasn't getting any better. She would stay in her bed most days, barely eating. I wasn't doing much better. My job performance was slipping. I wasn't getting enough sleep to function normally. And to make things worse, Tyler started having more nightmares about the skin man coming to get him. I felt hopeless. Things didn't get any better when we started receiving items in the mail. Items that belonged to Matthew. 3 days passed. I was sitting at my computer at work with a hangover that would knock a moose on its ass when my phone rang. I answered and barely got a word in before my ear was assaulted by the horrific wailing of my wife through the speaker. It was Tyler. He was missing. I collapsed in my cubicle. I knew it was him. He took Matthew and he returned to take Tyler. I didn't know what to do. I drove to the police station, but Tyler went missing in Connecticut. There wasn't much they could do. I lost any hope that I would ever see my son again. I saw only one option. I drove my car to the outskirts of town. There was a ravine not too far away. I was prepared to join my sons. I was prepared to die. But something happened as I drove. I passed a church. It was a small wooden church with chipped white paint. Something drove me to it. I went inside. It was empty. I looked up at the altar at the cross. I didn't know what else to do. I fell to my knees. I prayed. I prayed to a God that I wasn't even sure existed, but I prayed for hours and hours, just a single phrase. Please save him. Please save him. I sat in the church for hours until my phone started to ring again. I answered it. Tyler had been found. Alive. He was found running from a forest 12 miles from where he and Jenna had been staying. The police surrounded the forest, and they arrested the skin man. Buford Solomon. He was found with several razor blades on his person and several photos on his phone of all the children, aged 3 to 7, that he had taken. Matthew's pictures were found on that phone, along with Tyler's. Jenna and Tyler returned home the next day. I've never held my son in my arms as long as I did that day. My son, my Tyler, was safe. Buford Solomon was charged with 12 counts of abduction and several counts of murder. He was sentenced to death. I realize now the true depth of evil that exists in the world, and just how close it came to destroying my life. But by some miracle, my son was saved. I don't know how or why, but I can tell you one thing. Our family has been going to that little church every Sunday since. I even found out that the name of the church is St. Matthew's.